It started out innocently enough. I had swiped right on Tinder, like I had countless times before, and to my surprise, I matched with a girl who seemed cute and laid back. We chatted back and forth for a few days, nothing too serious or deep, just enough to get a feel for each other. She was funny, approachable, and we clicked right away. It felt easy. After a bit of casual conversation, we agreed to meet for ice cream at a local shop not too far from campus. Ice cream seemed like a low-pressure, friendly kind of first date. No big expectations, just a chance to hang out and see if the chemistry we had over text translated in person. When we met for the first time, I was immediately struck by how much prettier she was in real life. She had a natural look to her, not overdone or trying too hard, which I appreciated. The conversation flowed just as easily in person as it had online. We talked about the usual things, classes, where we were from, random interests, and laughed over silly stories about growing up. It was comfortable, almost familiar, even though we were essentially strangers. As we ate our ice cream and strolled through a nearby park, the mood started to shift just slightly. There was a kind of unspoken connection forming between us. The way her eyes lingered on mine a little longer than before, the subtle way she brushed her hand against mine as we walked, it all felt like we were moving past the typical first date small talk and into something more. We ended the night sitting on a park bench, and before I knew it, we were kissing. It wasn't one of those fireworks going off in your head kind of kisses, but it was nice, sweet, soft, and filled with promise. Afterward, we said our goodbyes, both of us smiling, and agreed to meet up again soon. Our second date was just as relaxed and enjoyable. We met up for a movie and hung out at my place afterward. We kissed again, this time with a bit more passion, but still, it felt more like we were testing the waters than diving in headfirst. I liked her, and it seemed like she liked me too, but there wasn't any rush to take things to the next level. It was a slow build, and I was okay with that. There was something refreshing about it. No pressure, no expectations. Then came the third date, and that's when everything took a completely unexpected turn. We had agreed to meet at a bar near campus on a Friday night. I showed up a little late, expecting to see her sitting casually at a table, sipping on a beer or something, but when I walked in, I could tell right away that something was different. She was already a few drinks in, her cheeks flushed, and there was a kind of looseness in the way she was acting that I hadn't seen before. She greeted me with an enthusiastic hug, giggling a little too much, and I realized pretty quickly that she was drunk. It wasn't like her, at least not from what I had seen. On our previous dates, she'd had a drink or two, but nothing excessive. This time, though, it was clear she had gone beyond her usual limit. I tried to play it off, figuring maybe she was just letting loose after a long week or something. We sat down, ordered another round of drinks, and the night carried on. Her laughter came more frequently, and she leaned in closer to me as we talked. But there was a moment when the conversation took a turn I wasn't expecting. She looked at me with a sort of mischievous smile and admitted, "I'm not really experienced when it comes to hooking up, but I kind of want a good story out of it." She laughed after saying it, but I could tell she wasn't joking. There was a seriousness behind her words, a kind of boldness that caught me off guard. I wasn't quite sure how to respond at first. We hadn't talked much about sex or anything close to that up until now. It had been light, fun, and easy, but this felt like a curveball. Still, the alcohol was flowing, and the night had taken on a weirdly adventurous energy. So, instead of overthinking it, I went along with the vibe. Somehow, we found ourselves leaving the bar and wandering through campus, looking for a more private place. I don't even remember how the idea came up, but we ended up heading toward the lake at the center of the university. It was a secluded spot, surrounded by trees, and the campus was pretty much empty at this hour. The whole situation felt surreal. The cool night air, the quiet of the campus, and the fact that we were looking for a place to hook up in such an unexpected location, it was like something out of a movie. When we finally found a spot near the lake, hidden from view by a few large bushes and trees, that's when things really started to escalate. What followed was one of the longest, most intense hookups I've ever experienced. For someone who had just admitted to being inexperienced, she was incredibly passionate. There was no hesitation, no awkwardness, just a kind of raw, unfiltered enthusiasm that completely surprised me. The setting only added to the intensity of it. The darkness, the isolation, the fact that we were doing something we shouldn't be doing in a place we shouldn't be, it all made the experience feel wilder, more exciting. I'll never forget how alive everything felt in that moment. The rush of adrenaline, the feeling of being totally present in the experience, it was almost overwhelming. We were completely absorbed in each other, lost in the moment, and time seemed to stretch on endlessly. It wasn't just about the physical act itself, though. It was the context, the spontaneity, the thrill of being out in the open like that, the way everything about the night felt so completely unplanned and out of the ordinary. We must have stayed there for what felt like hours, just caught up in the intensity of the hookup. Eventually, though, we came back down to earth, both of us breathing heavily, disheveled but grinning like we couldn't believe what had just happened. We lay there for a little while, staring up at the stars, the sound of the lake quietly lapping against the shore in the background. It was one of those moments where everything felt surreal, like I couldn't quite believe this was my life right now. After we'd caught our breath and started to feel the chill of the night setting in, we finally got up, straightened ourselves out, and began the walk back to campus. Neither of us said much as we walked, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It felt more like we were both processing what had just happened, not needing to put it into words. We parted ways with a quick kiss and a promise to text each other the next day. As I made my way home, I couldn't stop replaying the night in my head, half in disbelief that it had actually happened. The next day, the whole thing still felt like a fever dream. I kept thinking back to her confession at the bar, the unexpected shift in the night's direction, and how wild and out of character the whole experience had been. We met up a few more times after that, but the intensity of that night by the lake was something we never quite recaptured. It became one of those strange, unforgettable stories that you look back on with a mix of amusement and disbelief, something that felt so spontaneous and out of the blue that it couldn't be repeated even if we tried.